Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 2 of Video Cascadia. I'm Stephen Agan, joined this week by one of your Radio Cascadia favorites, Jordan Bonanno. Mr. Bonanno, how are you today?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I am very well, and in particular, I am well because of how our Cascadia clubs are doing. We do this video podcast for you when we can't bring you all of the news of the week in just an hour of audio. And sure enough, when you have 2 play-in round games and then 2 more Cascadia playoff fixtures coming over the weekend and all 3 teams involved, well, that seems like as good a reason as any to show off the old scarf wall back here.
Yeah, I agree.
And so let's get right into it, I guess. We have Portland SKC, 2-2 and then 7-6 on penalties for the Portland Timbers, who, I don't know, what do you say about that, who come back in heroic fashion, who stave off elimination in the most dramatic of ways. There's a penalty that hits off of the inside of either post. There are wonder goals. There are late goals.
A little bit of controversy.
I don't know. I guess to tell the story of this one, Jordan, you begin by saying the first half, not a lot happens. The Timbers have a lot of good looks but can't convert. Casey barely there, barely awake.
Yeah, I thought that, especially the first quarter, or the first half of the first half, Portland really dominated. They really looked like the better team. They looked like that team that had beaten LA 5-2 and they'd beaten Colorado 4-1. But they couldn't get that goal. SKC got back in, and I thought they ended the half probably in control a little bit more. But Portland definitely had the better chances. The one thing that I was a little disappointed was SKC was very, very physical, and you really didn't see any consequence for that. Ellis could have been sent off in the first few minutes. Nemeth could have been sent off in about halftime for taking the ball in Milano's face. And they got. I realize it's a playoff game, but you still got to call those. You still got to call those fouls and give the right card for that. And they got away for a little bit, and it came back to haunt the Timbers because both of those players ended up scoring.
It's true. I think that you have to say that Villarreal really let the game get away from him early on, and it was just kind of silly. It was just there were a number of fouls in the first half that were pretty obvious yellow cards, I thought, or where the referee needed to take a minute and have a chat with the guy and tell him to calm down, and he didn't, and he just either called the foul or would let him play, and you could just kind of tell this is gonna boil over. This is gonna be ugly. But the ugliness isn't really where it starts, is it, Jordan?
No.
It's with Portland's first goal. Why don't you tell me about that one?
Yeah, so it's Valerian Wallace. They're either out just outside the box or they're just inside, and the ball's kind of bouncing around, and Wallace ends up being able to like it's like a strong toe poke essentially just before the SKC defender gets in his way, and it's just too far out of the reach of Amelia. And that's ended up being the first goal that Timbers have been able to score on him in 2015.
Yeah, 3 matches, no goals in the first 3 results. But that was a fantastic goal. And then, it was a really nice finish, wasn't it? Just like the way, the angle he pokes it in from with his right, it's just, I don't know, you see people miss wide there normally with the right foot.
Yeah, and it reminded me of Valeri's goal. It was it was a different area of the field. Valeri's goal was a little much more towards the goal line, but it was that same kind of thing. You're just reaching out a little bit for a little bit, and just kind of putting some power onto it. But it was a good finish, and I think they deserved to be up 1-0 at that point.
I think they certainly did, and it was a little bit of a surprise when Kansas City was able to equalize on I believe it was 88 minutes. And it was a corner. You expected it would come off a corner, but with how lethargic they'd been, with how little they'd shown going forward, I really didn't see it. I thought Portland was on their way to a 1-0 victory. I didn't see that at all.
Yeah, but we talked about this in the previous episode. SKC is the one team that Portland couldn't give free kick opportunities to, or any set piece opportunities, and it ended up haunting them. Scoring and tying it up in the last few minutes of the game.
It really did, and at that point you have to think the momentum is more with Kansas City, and sure enough, they go on to capitalize on that momentum via Christian Nemeth for the second time at Providence Park this year. And boy, I didn't think he would outdo his first effort at that stadium, but sure enough.
Yeah, that was a great goal. It's probably for me personally, I think that was probably a top 10 goal of the year. Just where he's at in the field, that's a very hard place to shoot, and he's able to curl it around Coarse into the top right corner of the net.
It's a somewhere near perfect finish. I was in the stands and I turned to the guy next to me and just said, What are you gonna do?
There's really not much you can
Palazzo.
do about that. You know,
Palazzo.
he faked out Fochiva and got the just enough space to make that shot.
It's a Galazzo, and the Timbers really honestly look down and out for a while after that. Kansas City does a good job of putting their foot on the game and killing it. And you know, the crowd gets louder, the Timbers get frustrated,
Mm-hmm.
but I wouldn't say that there are a ton of clear-cut looks until there is that man, Maxi Urruti, there to save him on 118.
Yeah, you know, he hasn't. This has been probably what I think his least productive year so far. But you know, he came in when they needed him most, and he got them that tying goal.
Well, and in particular, you look at the way that Fernando Adi played on the night, and he
Mhm.
was just kind of absent for most of the game. None of his runs were particularly dynamic, were particularly near any of the crosses that were sent in towards him.
Mm-hmm.
They weren't very sharp. Just he kind of stood in one place most of the time, waiting for the ball in the box. And Urruti, there he is. He finds that pocket of space and is there to poke it home.
Yeah, with Audi, you know, I think the only two times that I really can remember, like his greatest moments in that match, were the that one really good chance where he's on the breakaway and Mealy's able to, you know, put I think he poked the ball away before Audi could get it, and then the second
that ball's
one
beyond him anyways.
Yeah, and then the second one was Nagby ended up getting the ball from the defender, and I think it was like a 2-on-2 with Audi, and unfortunately Audi was offside, and so it didn't really matter too much.
No one was at the north end, I think, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
You know, and then it goes to penalties, and you don't really expect what's going to happen. And I want to go through it kick by kick because I think that's a lot, but I think it's fair to say that when Abdul Salam steps up to win it, hits the inside of both posts. That was crazy. We had what was it? We had 22 penalties, 13 of them made, which left 9 misses, of which 3
could have been.
Or no, there were 4 misses. I'm sorry, there were 4 total misses.
Yeah.
No, and then 5 saves.
Mm-hmm.
But that's just unheard of, isn't it? You have a playoff game and you have 9 missed penalties.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy, especially since a few of those were, you know, with an opportunity to win the game.
A number of them, a great number of them, were an opportunity to win the game. And it was gritty as Sporting Kansas City to hold on, but it was mostly a lot of people yelling, I think, that probably just, you know, nudges that ball, you know, from keeping it from going over the line, just, you know, the sound waves, you know, pushing it a little bit there.
They might have had some impact, but that was probably the closest miss I've ever seen in a PK.
It was certainly the most interesting PK miss I've ever seen. And we'll have a neat Snapchat video from one of our people down there, and you guys gotta check it out. Timbers Army people, they're turned around, can't look. Then it goes off the post, and they just all freak out and celebrate. It was wonderful. It was a fantastic atmosphere, a fantastic game, and we actually have a lot more on our experiences from the match. You know, a wonderful Timbers playoff game coming up on this week's episode of Radio Cascadia, episode 64. And so be sure to look forward to that a little bit more on the fan side of things, a little bit more on the color commentary side. But Jordan, do you have anything else you want to say about this? Do you want to just try and sum it up, or do you want to recap this in a sentence for us?
Yeah, I guess all I would really say is that this was probably, for the Timbers, I'm going to say this is probably the most emotionally taxing game that they will ever probably be in. Just it's so up and down from 1 minute to another that I honestly, I'd be a little cautious for them the next round, but I think we'll talk about that later.
Yeah, I mean, I think you gotta be more optimistic than that.
I'm not.
Right now,
no,
at
it's
least,
it's not really pessimistic. It's just, you know, like especially when teams like win trophies, you know, you get that emotional, I guess, hangover, and hopefully, you know, they can power through it. But these kind of games too tend to lead to a little bit of drop off.
I guess I would just say that, you know, I mean, I was talking to a lot of TA folks after the game, and the thing that they imparted was just the Seattle win a couple years ago in the playoffs was a big deal, and it was the biggest deal that's ever happened. But this is the most exciting thing that's ever happened in a moment.
Yeah,
you know, this is the greatest,
I agree.
the greatest Timbers game of all time, probably, and so we should give it credit for that.
Oh no, it's nothing to discourage what happened. I'm just, you know, I'm being a little realistic here.
No, and they have the Vancouver Whitecaps coming up in the next round, and that will be far from simple, and we'll get to that preview here in just a minute. Well, the other Cascadia game might not have gone to penalties, but it wasn't any less exciting, as the Seattle Sounders downed the Los Angeles Galaxy by 3-2, finally getting by the boogeyman, the final boss, the speed limit, whatever you want to call it.
The
That's what
speed
LA
limit.
Galaxy
I
were.
like the speed limit.
The Western Conference speed limit. Yep.
Yeah, this was a very important game for the Sounders. This is usually we see them play the LA Galaxy either in the conference semis or in the conference finals, and I think it's really strange to see them so early on. But I think it might actually be much more beneficial for the Sounders to play them so early.
Jordan, you and I were having this conversation just after the game happened, and that was primarily about is this a statement win for the Seattle Sounders? And I said, you know what? I don't know that it's a statement to the league. I think it's a statement to themselves, for the guys who have been on this roster for a couple of those 3 defeats over the last 6 years in the playoffs. This is a statement about that. And I think that is very relevant for them. And I have to wonder, I have to hope, with an excited air about me, that getting over that hurdle will help them get over the ultimate hurdle here in the West, or at least get to the conference finals now and meet a Cascadia team. So
Yeah, in previous episodes we talked about Seattle hasn't lost in a long time, but they haven't won too many of the games either. And so, but these kind of games, they can provide a lot of emotional support and a lot of confidence. They can inspire a lot of confidence, and so I think that's instead of like a message to the other teams in the league saying we're for real. I think it's more that within the organization themselves, within the team themselves, they're gonna look at it and say we can do this. We're hot right now. We can win this cup.
I think you're right. I think that the Sounders may be the hottest remaining team in the MLS Cup playoffs now. Maybe the Timbers up there with that
Montreal
with that title, but I don't know. I don't even know if Montreal has I don't know if they have all the ball players that Seattle does. Then again, they were very impressive in dispatching Giovinco and
yeah. I mean,
Bradley
you probably
and
just
Altidore.
need Drogba and Piatti, and then you're set.
There you go. Yeah, then you got it all. But let's get back to the Sounder game. So I don't know, how do you describe it? 4 goals in 22 minutes and a fifth one disallowed by 27.
Oh, actually, 6. There was 2 goals that were disallowed pretty close to.
Yeah, and I think the Keene one's just a little bit later.
Yeah, it's a
so
foul.
First 35 minutes there are six goals, four allowed to stand, and for people who have watched a lot of Sounder playoff soccer, that whole scoring early a bunch thing doesn't really normally happen.
No, especially for the playoffs, Seattle teams generally, the Seattle playoff series generally seem to be a little bit slower,
Low scoring,
maybe a 1-1
at least for Seattle.
Yeah, and then until they get to LA, and then it's 3-0 LA. But this was an exciting game, I think, for anybody involved, especially neutrals.
The Portland game was fantastic for the drama that it produced, and the Seattle game might not have gone as late. It might not have had 11 rounds of penalties. It certainly didn't.
No.
But what it didn't have in that, it made up for in just raw quality, where this was some of the best MLS soccer I have ever personally watched.
Really?
Where, yeah, really it was.
When you see
that
2
was
of the
great.
goals are caused by
I don't care.
by goalkeeper errors.
I don't
and then
care. You have Dempsey, Martins, Dos Santos, Gerrard, Keane, Valdez. You have all Zardes. You have all those guys. Omar Gonzalez, Chad Marshall, Stefan Fry. All those guys out there.
Mhm.
That was a crazy amount of talent, and you don't ever see that in MLS. And just the way that the other team turned it over. Here we go. Now we're off on the break.
Yeah,
it was breathless. It was frenetic, frenzied.
it was
crazy,
a
chaotic for 90
crazy
minutes.
game, but I would have to disagree with you on the fact that to me it seemed like the team that made the least amount of errors won.
I thought that there was a lot of innate quality out there,
Mhm.
and I think that there were a lot of really impressive soccer moves happening. And even if they didn't all translate to goals, there was a lot of really high-level soccer being played.
Yeah.
The goals do come from mistakes, don't get
Mhm.
me wrong, but you can't discount the high-level soccer that goes along with it.
Okay. And I just wanted to ask you, Stephen. So Borg releases those
See you next time.
Yeah.
Yeah, instant replay.
Instant replay videos, yes. And he went on to this one pretty quickly after the game, and I'm just wondering, he seemed to lean towards the idea that maybe this was LA losing the game rather than Seattle beating LA. Where do you stand? Do you think Seattle played well enough to beat LA, or do you think LA kind of just shot themselves in the foot?
I mean, Ricketts didn't do well on any of the 3 goals.
No.
He really didn't. But Seattle had a lot of good looks outside of that for me. And I think that I think that Dos Santos and Gerrard never really got going like you would expect two superstars to. And I think
But
that at the end of the day, at the end of the day, Dempsey Martins
Mhm.
outplayed those three.
Yeah,
Their big three.
and I think you could also attribute some of the, at least with Gerard, you could attribute maybe the quality of Rose and Freeberg. You know, maybe they played them out of the game.
I think that Andy Rose had one of the best games of his Sounder career so far. He was absolutely everywhere. Eric Freeberg, every time he got caught forward, which wasn't very frequently, played great.
Mm-hmm.
But every time he got caught forward, Andy Rose was there to cover back, pick off the ball. Took it off of Gerrard himself a couple of times to thunderous applause.
Yeah.
But was also a key factor going forward. Was able to combine short balls in the midfield very effectively.
Mm-hmm.
Was a good partner. Was a complement to Eric Freeberg's play. Even if between the two of them, you didn't have a true defensive midfielder, you had enough cover going back that Juninho and Gerrard weren't going to play you off the pitch. So I think that Andy Rose's function in the game was rather influential. And I think that with Alonso out, somebody needed to be able to step up and cover the ground that Rose did. Schmidt specifically mentioned his closing speed in the post-game interview.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was key. I don't know. I thought that the biggest key was Eric Freeberg volleying in from 20 yards out in the second half.
Yeah, that will do it. So I guess moving on to some of the more depressing news of the game, we saw 2 injuries. One to Leonardo Gonzalez, the other one to Brad Evans. First half and second half. What are your thoughts on those, Stephen?
You know, the Gonzalez one looks a little bit more innocuous, but the fact that he has to come off and he's as old as he is worrying for coming back quickly.
Mm-hmm.
The way Evans pulled up, the way he still manages to get back and knock that ball out for a corner, that's heroic. The word you're looking for is heroic. And then B, he's not going to play again this season, I don't think, Jordan.
Yeah, I would have to agree with you. It seemed like it was another hamstring injury, and those take a few weeks at the very least.
Well, and Ziggy in his post-game presser goes, there's a lot of emotion tonight. We'll know more in the morning. And if you're going to...
He never does that.
When he's vague, it's not good, and when he's that vague, and when he doesn't talk about any of the technical aspect of the injury, it's bad, and that he's just trying to keep it from the media.
Yeah.
Just trying to keep it under wraps for a day or two. But I don't think we will see Brad Evans again this MLS postseason.
So does that, obviously losing Evans is gonna hurt the Sounders, but do you think, Scott and I guess Fisher, if Fisher has to replace Gonzalez, do you think they can step up?
I do expect it to be Fisher. I'm sorry. That's it's tough. You expect it to be Scott and Fisher, don't you?
Yeah.
Because you're not gonna have Gonzalez back for a while. I think it relates more to our FC Dallas preview we'll do for this clip, but I think you're gonna just have to try and hang on in the first leg against Dallas, and we'll talk about that. But maybe it doesn't even have so much to do with the injuries. You got bigger problems than a couple of defenders out.
Yeah.
You're really tired. But I think that long term, no, Seattle's not the same without Evans and Gonzalez, and I think that Fisher and Scott are not adequate replacements for 5 matches, if I'm being completely honest.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think, if you can't get at least one of these two back, presumably it would be Gonzalez, that you would really want that, and without the two, the Sounders' chances, I think, are greatly diminished.
For sure, and we'll end on a brighter note here. The Sounders, they do finally get past the Los Angeles Galaxy. We can't express how excited we are here at Radio Cascadia to finally see this, and just what a great couple of days of soccer. Just to go over the knockout round, holistically speaking, we had 4 wonderful matches, all of them pretty close.
Well, except for the Montreal game.
Well, yeah, but that was just funny. You don't want close, you just want funny.
Yeah.
How is it gonna crash, and when will it light on fire this year?
And you paid $20 million this time for it.
I know, right? Anyways, the Seattle Sounders didn't pay $20 million. The LA Galaxy paid at least 10 for Dos Santos, but they're out, and the Sounders move on. The Timbers do too. And let's go check out what they're going to be doing this weekend on Sunday in these Western Conference semifinal first legs. Well, Jordan, we spent most of our time on Video Cascadia this week reviewing probably the 2 greatest MLS Cup playoff games ever involving Cascadian sides. I think we were right in doing so.
Yeah, I think they deserve the time.
I think they deserve the time. I think they deserve the coverage. And that just leaves us time for the quick three keys to the game for both Vancouver versus Portland and then Seattle against Dallas. Those two matches will comprise a Cascadian doubleheader starting at 2 p.m. on Sunday, and everybody should watch those, the Western Conference semifinals.
Oh, definitely.
So this is going to be the first leg, starting with the Portland Timbers hosting the Vancouver Whitecaps. Jordan, do you want me to drop the first key on you here?
I think you can handle it.
I think I can handle it, and it's a historical point. That's that the Timbers and Whitecaps have never met in the MLS Cup playoffs before, but they have met in the USL playoffs, or actually the USSF D2 Pro League, as they called it, in 2010, the temporary merger between NASL and USL. That was the last year that the Timbers and Whitecaps competed in the lower divisions of the U.S. soccer pyramid, and was the last time that they played each other outside of being MLS clubs.
Mm-hmm.
And the Whitecaps, as the 5 seed, managed to eliminate the Timbers by a 2-1 margin, who the Timbers being the 4 seed. And that was the last time that happened. But it's worth mentioning because we do have a playoff series between these two, in the last 5 years, even if the players aren't the same, the fan bases are.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be something that's, I think, still going to be in the minds of the fan base.
Oh, yeah, historically relevant for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And, Jordan, what's the second key to the game?
Yeah, second one I think is going to look at the Timbers side. For me, I think the Timbers really have to make sure that they are strong on the wings, both offensively and defensively. Without Morales for Vancouver's really going to rely on using the guys on the wings like Rosales, like Mane. Teixeira might even come over there once in a while. And so that may force guys like Wallace to play a little defensively at times, especially on counters. They may have to provide a little bit more than they're used to doing.
For sure, and I think that's a great point, and I think that two-way play from the wingers is going to be vital. As far as the third key to the Vancouver-Portland game goes, for me, it is the Vancouver Whitecaps' ability to take advantage of the extra rest that they have, to take advantage of their bye. They're coming off of a week's rest, whereas the Timbers are going to be playing their third game in a week. Make this first game at Providence, make it an advantage, and go and pick up your away goal. And to me, that's the Whitecaps' key to the game, is if you get your away goal and you look like the fresher team, then you're going to look awfully good when you get back to BC Place the following weekend.
Sounds good.
And Jordan, do you want to pick this one?
Yeah, I think, for the first game, I think Portland's really going to try and take advantage of the starting home game. But I also do think that the SKC game is going to have an impact just due to the fact that it was a few days ago, and it's a very emotionally turbulent game.
Well, more than that, their starters all went 120 minutes.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It was only a few days ago.
Yeah, but the emotions one thing, but you actually have the raw statistics of Nagby went 120.
Yeah.
Everybody went
almost
120.
Everybody went 120.
Everybody but 3 guys went 120.
Yeah. So I think Vancouver is the fresher side, and I think the Houston game gave them a bit of a confidence that they were lacking for the while, and also they're coming back a little bit healthier than they haven't been for a little while, and so I think a 2-1 Vancouver win is, I think that's probably where I'm going to go.
In the cards.
Yeah.
I think I have a 1-1 draw. I think that the Caps do get their away goal, and that 1-1 draw will be more advantageous for the Whitecaps than it will be for the Timbers due to the away goal, due to the freshness factor. But I don't think that the Whitecaps are able to entirely capitalize on the advantage they've been given. And I think that it's all to play for next weekend in that series.
Okay.
Tell me about the first key to FC Dallas and the Seattle Sounders this weekend.
Yeah, they last year Seattle advanced through the away goals. And this time I think the Dallas is really going to try A because they have to I guess show that they deserved the number 1 seed in the West, and B, get some playoff revenge. So I think they're going to be coming out swinging, even though they're the away team.
They'll want their away goal really, really badly, and to me that brings me to the second key, which is Seattle needs to play to 0 at home, and if they get away without giving up an away goal, I think that on a week's rest at Dallas, that atmosphere is nothing like what we have here in Cascadia. I don't think that despite Seattle's relative lack of success in the state of Texas, Cascadia's relative lack of success in the state of Texas, that Dallas will be able to compete with a Seattle team on a week of rest. So you have to survive. Just like you can't lose 3-0 at LA, you can't let Dallas beat you 3-0 in Seattle this weekend.
No, and I think I find that very strange that you're gonna bring that up. You bring zero. So you think 0-0 is a good result for them?
I think 0-0 would be a very good result for Seattle. I know that they haven't won at Dallas this season.
Mm-hmm.
I know that in general playing at Dallas is tough, but it's not going to be so hot there. Dallas, they're Dallas. I don't know. They always get close to the trophies and then they always slip through their fingertips, and I'm not sure why, but it makes me think that as long as the Sounders aren't catastrophic in the first leg, having the away goals advantage in the second leg, being able to go out and attack freely, knowing that what you're doing counts double,
Mm-hmm.
I think that that'll spur them on to the conference finals eventually.
Yeah,
But
what
why don't you give us the third key?
for me, I thought, because Dallas is going to be attacking, they're going to be really pushing for at least 1 or 2 goals. I think it's a perfect opportunity for Seattle to try to absorb that a little bit and maybe get a goal or two off a counterattack. And I thought, and I think if they can do that, they're going to be set up really well for the game in Dallas.
I think that's very reasonable, and I think that any Seattle lead going into the second leg, they're very likely to advance because it will have meant that a Sounder team on 4 days of rest is outplaying the same Dallas team on a week of rest,
Mm-hmm.
and that says very good things when now you both get a week of rest. So I think that we're ready to pick this one as well, Jordan. What do you have for the score?
I am going to go with 1-1 Seattle. 1-1 Seattle draw.
1-1 Seattle.
It's
I like
it's
it.
a Seattle win. 1-1.
So,
Maybe a late goal from Seattle.
even at CenturyLink. So you're thinking Dallas gets their away goal and has the advantage going into the second leg.
Yeah, I think Dallas is they're a really good team. Seattle's a really good team as well, but they're with the 2 injuries in the back and only a few days rest. I think they may be a little bit shaky, but I think a 1-1 draw is still good for them. They'll have to push for it in Dallas, but it's something they can't handle.
I think that Ziggy Schmidt takes a page out of the page book.
And
Out
the
of
page book?
Out of the page book.
Yeah.
No, out of the book of one Peter Vermees, and finds a way to white knuckle out a 0-0 here, because Dallas is going to be fresh with a lot of good attacking players, and I don't think Seattle can keep up over the course of 90 minutes in this first leg if they try and keep things too open.
Sounds good.
It does sound good, and everybody, that's going to be it for episode 2 of Video Cascadia. Thanks so much for watching, and look forward to our next Radio Cascadia release coming sometime early next week. That'll be episode 64, reviewing all of the weekend's coverage that we just previewed, giving you the comprehensive previews for next weekend as well. We have some culture pieces on the atmospheres from the first few playoff games. We have some people by to talk about refereeing decisions. It's going to be a good episode there, just like it was a good episode here. And so until then, thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you next time on Video Cascadia.